Great. So we do not have Marlene tonight. She is in Egypt,
Wow.
and we don't.
I'm only in New Jersey.
We do not have Emmy nor Finn. They have another a school commitment tonight. So thank you everybody for joining us for our last meeting of the year. Could we take a quick roll call, please? If you are, when I call your name, would you please just say here for the purpose of the minutes? Bud,
Here.
Renaz,
Here.
Amelia,
Here.
Carrie.
Here.
Lisa,
Here.
Nate,
Here.
Jen,
Here.
Cynthia.
Here.
Okay, great. Do we have any public participation tonight, Katie?
We have one attendee, and I'd ask them if they want to speak, if you could just raise your hand and I'll move you over. But if not, nope, we will move on.
Okay, great. First item on the agenda tonight, approval from of the minutes from November 17th, 2022. I got a couple of edits. Does anybody else have any additional changes they would like made before we finalize those? Okay. Could I please get a motion to approve the minutes? And a second. Bud. I think you're on mute, Bud.
Sorry, you think I know how to do this. Second.
Renaz.
I don't think I was in the last meeting.
Okay. Amelia,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Nate,
I think I missed last month as well. So
Jen,
Yes.
Cynthia.
Yes.
Okay, so we have voted to approve the minutes from November 17th, 2022 with the changes that were sent over prior to this meeting. Renaz, do you want to talk about what's going on with the multicultural affair? I know you guys are moving at a pretty quick clip and there are things happening. So if you could please give us an update and let us know sort of what you need from us at this point to help keep things moving along.
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. So we changed the date to March 19th because it conflicted with Ramadan. So now it's going to be Sunday, March 19th from 1 to 5. Everybody knows that we booked Powers Hall. We held a session, information session for the people who responded on the survey. It was almost 50 people who responded, and we got good attendance. And now, so far, we have only 12. Sorry, I have COVID. Excuse me. We have 12 participating countries now confirmed, so all cultures, and we kind of divided the planning committee into 3 groups, one for marketing and one for the logistics for like the tables and running the day, and one to collect donations. And so far we have the Rotary Club donated $1,000 for us. A State Representative Denise Garlick 500, and the Immigration Justice Task Force also donated 250. So we're doing fine so far, and our next meeting gonna be on Monday, the coming Monday, and I invited the student unions from Needham High School to join us as well, either to participate in the event or to help, because we will need definitely volunteers. What I really need, if everyone can just advertise it, please, and I can share with Tina, if you can forward it to the group, the flyer. The flyer has a QR code which if you just scan it can take you to the survey. And if you fill the information, we created also a Gmail account that we shared it with the planning committee. It's multiculturalneedham@gmail.com. So anybody who responds to the survey, it will come to that account, and then we reach out to people. It looks like it's coming together, and we're very, very excited and happy about it. Any questions?
Are you guys still
Just-
looking for more representation in other countries or cultural groups?
Yes, we would like to, but my target was like the minorities, which I really have a majority now. Like I have 12 countries who are like we have Syria, Ethiopia, Argentina, Mexico, I think El Salvador. The plan was to have 24 actually, because the Powers Hall can fit 24 tables. So that was the plan. So far, we don't have 24. We have only 12.
Renas has done an amazing job, really incredible.
Thank you so much for everybody's help. I really appreciate it.
Does anybody else have any other questions about? Oh, I do have another question. So the funds are going toward, the funds that you guys are raising are going toward what? And then what is your fundraising goal? And are you looking for other types of donations
Yes.
in addition to monetary?
Yes. So the target was almost $3,000. And the $1,000 that we got from the Rotary Club, we weren't planning to use it towards buying flags and the logistics of the event, or like the yard signs to advertise it, or buying like some ads in a newspaper. We weren't planning to use this $1,000 because this $1,000, the plan was each participating member that we can put their names, and then we have a lottery, and then this the country that will win this lottery, this $1,000 can go and help a charity organization to that this culture supports. So, but if we don't get enough money, then we might use this money for the event. Sorry, I can't remember the other part of your question.
Oh, if you were looking for other donations in addition to monetary.
Yes. Like for example, restaurants would be nice if we can get like some gift cards from restaurants and businesses. I reached out to a lot, but the past 2 weeks were tough, and also people are not really responding now. I feel like they say, oh, it's still in March, so it's still far. So, and now it's Christmas and the holidays, so they are donating to other things. And I went to Needham Bank and they told me, oh, we would like to donate, but it's gonna be after the new year, like starting January. I don't know what's the point. I don't know their logistics but something like that.
Yeah, I do
well,
think
Sorry, go
companies
ahead.
might want to donate after their fiscal year refreshes, so they may have outdone their donation funds
Right.
for this year. But I think
Yeah.
January would be a good push.
And we're also going to be going to some of the other banks in town. There are a lot of new banks.
Plenty of banks.
Amelia,
I wrote a grant to the Needham Cultural Council, and I checked with them today, and they're still reviewing, they're fine tuning the finals, and they hope to be finished by the middle of January. So then we have asked for $1,000. And I'm pretty optimistic we'll get maybe not the whole amount. I also contacted 5 major groups in the town of Needham. Fidelity Bank was one, and we might have some inroad there because Raman Abrashamian from Needham Diversity Initiative has a close working relationship with them, and I indicated that in the letter that I sent to them. And we haven't heard from them, and we also haven't heard. I can't remember who the other. There were 5 people. I think I wrote to Dunkin' Donuts and what is the big corporation in the mental block. oh goodness, in Needham.
TripAdvisor?
TripAdvisor. Haven't heard from them. The North Hill it did send us a response to the letter, and they would get back to us. But I think what Lisa said is probably what is inhibiting them from responding sooner. So anyway, so there are some other in the pipeline. We're hoping to get more money from them, but I think we won't know until after the first of the year.
Lisa,
Renaz, does the flyer that you're going to send around have specifics on not just advertising the event itself, but what you're looking for at this point? So we could use that as a way to get more table hosts or ask for donations. If you want us.
Yeah, so the flyer has like the QR code that will take you to the survey to answer. It won't talk about the donations, but if you want to host a table or volunteer, then yes, it gives you specifics, but
Okay.
not, the donation letter is different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want everyone's help with the donation letter, donations, or? I mean, if I'd be happy to go into a few places if you want to share that donation letter with anyone else with us.
Sure, I guess, yeah, I can do that.
If that's
was
helpful.
yeah, it was approved. The donation is not coming to Needham Human Rights Committee. It's gonna go to NCI. So
Got
it
it.
was approved by them. So I yes, I can share the letter. I'll send
I
them
mean, if
both
there's
to
already
Tina.
plenty of people working at it, I'd also don't want to too many of us to go into the same places. So I'm just offering if it can be helpful. I don't want to go into the same places people already have. So you and I can also talk offline about that.
Sure. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say, if you know there are specific countries you are looking for, maybe that would be helpful as a way to prompt ideas of people we can reach out to.
Sure. Thank you.
Amelia.
I just want to say, I think if this is a trial run, it's our first attempt. I think if we're successful with, even if we have a smaller number and word gets out, I think a lot more people will be connected to us in the next year. I mean, we hope to have this as an annual event.
That's great. Does anybody else have any other questions or suggestions as Renaz and the team move forward?
If only just we can advertise it, that's all, either on our Facebook or website, or on, if you know your personnel contacts, it would be nice, only in Needham. I would really appreciate that help.
Okay, great. That sounds like it's really coming together. That's awesome.
Thank you.
If you need anything else from us in the meantime, obviously just reach out and we'll do what we can. Okay. The Martin Luther King Day program, Cynthia and Amelia, Cynthia, you've been sending around some logistical stuff on that, and the date, I was not able to change the date because the agenda had already been submitted.
Yeah, no
So
problem.
the date is not the 14th, it is the 16th.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, do you guys want to talk?
Before we get into the logistics, I don't know if this has gone out to the Human Rights Committee, but every year they have a theme that's based on a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. And it's probably been in some of the advertisements, but we want to be sure that everybody here has heard it. And it's, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. They are going to make a comment about the use of gendered language. We recognize that it applies to all of us. I don't have the quote, but there's a way of kind of holding that part, because felt that it was a really good quote and important to have the actual words that were used.
Bud?
I just thought I would mention another thing that might be of interest to the group is Temple Beth Elohim in Wellesley is having Joe Rosenblum, who is a Martin Luther King scholar who wrote about wrote a book about the last hours of Martin Luther King, and he's going to be speaking the Monday before Martin Luther King Day. So I'll get information to the group. It might be
Great.
something of interest to the people on this call.
Thank you.
Okay. I was just going to ask, since I missed part of the last planning meeting, whether Amelia wanted to, since our next Human Rights Committee meeting will be after Martin Luther King Day, whether you wanted to tell them any more about the program. So I think there are a lot of exciting things happening.
Actually, I missed the meeting before,
Oh,
so
that's right. We both did.
because we were at the multicultural meeting. It's coming together, and I think every year they do a fantastic job. And so far, they will have choirs. They will have the schools are involved. And there's a lot of variety. I think it will hold people's interest, and it's in person. This is the first time it will be in person, and it'll be more personalized in that people will be coming in. There will be refreshments, as Cynthia will talk about in a minute. And I think hopefully we'll get some of the people who used to join us in the past and realize how much more meaningful it is when it's in person. And it will be at the high school. So different venue than Pollard.
Hey, so last week, I got a message from one of the Needham Diversity Initiative people. Would the Human Rights Committee be willing to provide refreshments? And years ago, for many years, we used to do it in a very labor-intensive way that we approached different businesses and asked for donations, and we got platters of food. And both of those things are not possible now, time-wise, and also we want to be very careful, especially come January, about not exposing people through lots of contact around food platters. But we thought it would be a nice thing to offer, to have some coffee and to have some prepackaged food. So if the committee agrees to do this, what is needed is some members who will purchase the items from their own resources and then get reimbursed by the Needham Diversity Initiative, since we don't have money here as part of our work. So I think I already have one volunteer. Our wonderful leader, Tina, volunteered to get coffee. This would be, in the old days, it was urns, but we're doing boxes of Joe, and our guess is 4 boxes, 3 regular, 1 decaf, and they supply the other things that go with it, like the sugar and milk, of course. And then to have probably 2 or 3 people who will be willing to purchase some prepackaged foods like breakfast bars, muffins, pastries, and we're guessing, and I was hoping somehow I could tap into Marlene's knowledge. If you are guessing on 100 people, some of whom eat nothing and some of whom eat everything, that maybe like 200 pieces. But if there were 2 or 3 people who wanted to work on that, they could kind of figure it out together. That is if we want to do this. So I suppose that's and it would also mean getting the food there. And there are 3 people from the Diversity Initiative who volunteered to help with setup in the morning. So if you wanted to purchase things and give them to somebody who's going to be there early, you wouldn't necessarily have to be there early. So it's really just the getting the food in advance.
Cynthia, the other thought would be, again, I'm just throwing it out, because I remember, going to Roach Brothers and getting platters of pastry and things like that.
Yeah, right.
Would be if we got something like that the day before and we were able to put them like in a Ziploc bag and have individual things for people to pick up, that might be something, we can talk about that offline, that we should maybe consider doing.
I think in terms of the Board of Health kind of regulation.
Okay, that'd be a problem.
If we buy prepackaged things, we don't have to make I think, make an application to them, because then you
Okay.
have to say, well, you're handling the food and
Right.
did you have gloves on and
Right,
what kind
okay,
of bags did you use? So I love that idea because it's much better food, but if we can find, and maybe some people know places like, I don't know, if Costco or stuff like that, but we don't need to.
At the meeting, that they have these breakfast bars at Trader Joe's, which are wrapped. And they're nut free. That's another thing where we want to be
Right.
careful about, because there will be children at the
Yep.
event. So we don't want to have anything nuts in it.
I highly recommend that. They call them breakfast bars, and they're in fruit flavors like apple, berry, kind of thing. And we use those for many years, and they're easier to eat than granola bars, and they don't have the nuts in them. So that would definitely be one of the things. So are
And
there,
whoever purchases something, you will be reimbursed by NDI.
and we should get either the town tax number or the NDI one so that we don't have to pay tax on it. But I know NDI is nonprofit, so probably that's easier. I'm looking over at Katie.
I'd be happy
Yes,
to
that's
reach
easier.
out to Trader Joe's if you want me to.
What,
I'd be happy to reach out to Trader Joe's and, find out the cost and see if we could like buy a large, amount of things from them and stuff. So be happy to do that.
Great.
okay,
I also have a membership with Costco, so I can go, and if you want large quantities, if you just tell me what's needed, I can just go buy it and bring it early on the day of the event.
and do you know if you'll be in town that day, that you could come by the school?
Yeah. I'm not going anywhere.
No, some people are always away on that
Yeah.
weekend. And Bud, you're gonna be in town, so you'll be able to bring them. Terrific. Okay, so I think and Amelia volunteered to get some tablecloths and try to figure out which was the most environmentally sensitive, which would still work. And then we thought if we could get some trays like you have in a dining hall to go under each of the boxes of Joe, that would be a way to keep them from making such a mess there. I was of the opinion that people could drink water from the water fountain, but they wanted to have some big bottle of water, like they're 2.5 gallons that have a little spigot on it. So that's the other thing, is that somebody could get that, and one of the people from NDI has cups. So years ago, we had juice and we pre-poured it, and that was a little more nourishing kind of to give to kids in the morning. But it's too difficult in terms of trying to be safe too. Water is much easier. So,
Well, I can get the water since I'm getting the coffee.
oh, somebody else, because you're gonna have a lot to carry, or will you have people with you to help?
I've got children.
Children, that's great. So I think like Roach Brothers has it too.
Yeah, so that's fine. I can just,
Okay, terrific.
so do you need us to coordinate with anybody? I think you had mentioned in the email sort of coordinating with, do you want us to coordinate? Do you need us to coordinate further beyond this? Or you have our names and,
If I have your names and email, I guess it's talking with I can talk with Renaz about what they have at Costco to try to get the amount, and also with Bud on that.
And you'll also get us the tax ID number so we can, when we purchase the things, we can,
Right. But we don't need the letter and all of that stuff that I have like the templates for the letters, and thank you so much for being part of the community. And then we did in the program and stuff later on, which is, I know you need to do that with a multicultural festival, but for this, at this point, I think we don't need to. And one of the most important things is if you can be there, and it's really nice being there as people arrive, and the people who are bringing the food and all, it's part of the welcoming process. And I will remind them about making sure people see the signs at the auditorium that, no food or drink, and we also are asking people to wear masks, which you can't do in eating. Anyway, so it
And
goes
also which door to go into, because that's been confusing to some people in the past.
Absolutely. And I again was only there for half of the meeting last week, but I did send all of that about, do they want to, will they have the Webster Street door open or just the one that's up the big steps? But to the left is the ground level entry, and then you can take an elevator up if the custodian has unlocked the door and if the elevator is working. So there's a Friday evening thing that NDI people will be going to the building and making sure they have tables set up in the foyer and that the various doors are working. The main thing I would, if I make sure I have cell phones from people, so I can follow up with that. But do you need to take a vote on doing this, or is it just by consensus?
No, I don't think
I mean,
so.
we're sponsors, so this is one of the things to do. And
So you'll just touch base with us as we get closer with the final sort of what time specifically you need us to drop off and exactly where things need to go.
exactly. And we used to think in terms of coffee pickup at like 8:30 to try to get there by 9 and latest 9:15, because some of the people start to arrive who are going to be in the program, like the plugged in band and some of those, and they really like having the coffee or a little bit of food on the way in. And I have to remind NDI people to put the 9:30 to 10, 9:30 doors open, refreshments. Don't call it breakfast, please.
And the other thing for our group that attends, I don't know if people still have their human rights name tags, but I think
Oh,
it would
yeah,
be
that's a
nice
great-
for us to be wearing them so there's a presence and they know who we are also.
Yep, thank you. That's a really good one. And
Amelia?
we need to do name tags for some of our lovely new people.
Official. Could I just say that Cynthia has been spearheading this since I have been on the Human Rights Committee. And this is really important. I mean, we are co-sponsors, and this is an important contribution that we're making to NDI because they have been working every week. We've had planning meetings, the same thing with the Diversity Summit. So any bit of help is very much appreciated. And I think it also highlights our contribution as well. And we have a lot to thank Cynthia because she has been very persistent and successful in getting people to cooperate. So thanks, Cynthia.
And Marlene, who's on the Nile. And Amelia, when in the background, because I know you're often help in advance, but aren't able to be there at that moment.
Unfortunately, I will be away.
So I don't know how many people will be able to be there. So if we want to call on you for other things.
Is there any marketing collateral yet that we can post?
They've been putting, Kim Marie Nichols has been putting things on the NDI Facebook. So I reposted on my personal Facebook, but that we can pick up on those.
There should be a flyer any day now. Someone's working on a flyer.
And I hope that they remember to put the 9:30 doors open refreshments. Do you remember who's working on that?
I think Alyssa or somebody, I don't remember now. Either Ramen
Okay.
usually does it. Ramen or Jesse. Maybe Jesse will do it.
Okay,
I think it'll get lost in people's feeds if we do it before the new year.
that's a
think we
good
should
point.
wait.
Yep. We're actually ahead in some regards, and I keep every year thinking of getting back to doing the foot traffic thing with the flyer. And it's kind of fun to go to different businesses and say, hey, do you know about this? We'd love to have you come, and would you will help us out by putting up the flyer? So, but not till January. Any other thoughts about doing this? I mean, and it'd be good if we know of any other people who are going as backups, because there is so much illness going around, and we might want to have some people we could call on.
I would love to participate if I'll be here. There's a good chance I'm away that weekend, so I just didn't
Mhm.
want to,
So that's a maybe. And Nate,
it's a
do you
maybe,
know-
but
not-
I certainly
yeah.
let me know.
Do you know whether you'll be around that weekend, or whether that's something you might come to?
I think I may be in the same boat as Lisa. We may be up in New Hampshire that weekend, but if I'm around, I'd love to help out.
Okay, thanks. Again, not to just not to put you on the spot, but it's one of the ways of, as Bud was saying, to get the name tags and Amelia, so forth, one of the ways of being present. So thank you all.
Anything else on this or any other things that you need right now?
I don't think so. But thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you guys for working on this. Did everybody get a chance to go through the discrimination complaint process document that I sent? So Marlene and I finalized this before she left for her trip. We need to flush it out a little bit more before we go to talk to the select board in January. But if I could just sort of get initial thoughts right off the bat to see how you guys are feeling about it, if you feel like we're moving in the right direction, any major changes that you need to be made, or anything glaring that she and Katie and I missed, would be really good to have that information now.
I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was thorough and well thought out, and hopefully addresses many of the questions that could arise. I think, the only thing I'm curious about is what questions they'll have so that we can proactively prepare. And I think you addressed that to the best of your ability of like, what would we do with the complaint, and I really liked that you exemplified some of the places we would go and which types would go where. And so much of it is, and it depends. So, but I thought you laid out it really well. So just thank you once again to you and Marlene for continuing to drive this.
I would say ditto. I mean, really great job. It looks wonderful.
Katie, do you have a sense of where, because you helped us with this tremendously, what questions may come up or where we may from the select board?
I think I'm trying to think what they might ask. I can't think of anything that this group hasn't already talked about. I think foundationally they'll want an understanding of kind of why you're proposing the process the way it is in terms of navigating open meeting law and public record realities. And I think the document, Tina, that you circulated to the group was trying to get at the kind of what if scenarios, like, because it really is going to be situational. So I think the questions that some of the members had earlier in the process, when Tina, you had met with the chairs, was more about what would this process result in kind of any enforcement actions or any kind of if there was a kind of a finding that there was discrimination, then what, would there be a liability of kind of this group, again, like taking action against someone? And I think that the document that you looked at for this meeting really gets at that it's really not an enforcement matter. It's more about fostering discussions and better understanding between people.
Does anybody else have any other? So the only thing that Marlene and I, we just didn't get a chance to really complete were the resources for referrals. So if you guys could just, I know it's a really busy time, just email me other ideas, because that's that's kind of a skeleton list right now of organizations in town, municipal, statewide, that we could add to this list. That would be great. But I just, yeah, Cynthia.
I wonder if you can just give an example of one or two rather than trying to have an exhaustive list, because if you look at like the Needham Community Council has an enormous list every year of all the different groups in town. And so I think if they know the kinds of places you're talking about, that it might be sufficient to list 2 or 3, like youth resources. What's the name of the youth resources board in town? Just some of them would be town places and some of them would be like the Needham Community Council. And
Lisa.
With that notion of examples, I wonder if, I don't know if you want in this document, but maybe to be prepared for the meeting, you might already have, is to be armed with a couple examples, maybe that have happened in other towns that have used this process, if people need a way to wrap their head around how this could play out. That might just be helpful, like in an appendix for you to be ready with.
Okay, thank you.
great idea.
I had a question, and maybe it wasn't intentionally left off, but were we leaving off intentionally things like time to respond and that kind of stuff? Because that's what comes to question for me. Like expected response time and all, like, I feel like that's an important piece of this.
Yeah, that was in the original. I don't remember what Marlene and I had discussed, but yeah, we'll fill in those details as well. I think it was something like 48 hours for the point person to get back to the person who files the complaint. And then there's going off of what Arlington had done, just sort of mimicking their timeline. But yeah, we'll definitely, I'll jot that down.
Okay.
We'll definitely include that in the discussion, because I'm sure that's going to come up. Okay. Jen.
So if, thank you, Tina, again, for doing all this, is the intention in terms of the bucket of issues that are going to be handed off immediately, I guess, with regard to a complaint about the police or a town employee or the schools, is that a conversation that happens if somebody calls with one of those kind of complaints? Are they told up front, this is something that we need to refer immediately over to the Needham Police Department? Or do they have kind of that first step intake with somebody from the Human Rights Committee before they're told that the Human Rights Committee is not going to be able to handle their particular complaint?
I would think there's some intake happening first, right? Sort of, and putting into place some of that training that we did a couple of weeks ago, just to really flesh out what the situation is, because I don't think that we can make a call to immediately hand off without truly understanding what is going on. Katie, do you feel like that makes sense?
Yeah, I
What we were
think
talking
a
about?
basic level of intake would be necessary for HRC members to identify it as being one of those scenarios. I think the only other thing I'd add is, and maybe we could clarify this in the document, that the person making the complaint has agency over what happens. So when we wrote it, kind of hand the case off, I'd say the complainant can decide if they wanted to go any further beyond that initial discussion. If that makes sense.
Yes.
If they do not want to be handed off,
Then we just,
it just concludes. Yeah.
exactly.
Thanks.
Cynthia,
Hey, couple of things about the intake. Are we saying that that's written, verbal, phone, in person? Are there, I'm thinking of some other places, they have very clearly, this has to be a particular thing in writing, or you will be assigned a person who will talk to you on the phone or in person. Are we required to spell out that kind of thing at this time? And also with that, which things are private and which things are then, so somebody comes and wants to know about it and you say, well, that sounds like it would be the kind of thing that we could do, but I need to tell you that anything from here on in is going to be subject to open meeting law or whatever. So I think that how the intake works and then at what point things are confidential and at what points they're publicly shared.
yep. Katie,
Tina, I'll defer to you and Marlene. I believe Julie had created an intake form. But I guess Cynthia, just to your bigger point, and we can make sure this is compiled into whatever the final document is. Anything submitted to the Human Rights Committee by anyone is a matter of public record. And if it were to be asked for, we would have to turn it over because it is a public record. So I think the intention all along was to be really upfront with everyone that confidentiality is not something that HRC can guarantee. If somebody wants to just have an initial phone conversation with an HRC member, that of course can stay confidential because it's just direct between you and that person, but documentation is not private.
I think that will make a big difference to people. I'm thinking of somebody being upset and not sure where they're going, and to have that first phone call to help them figure out whether this is something they want to do or whether they want to, and then they can think about whether they're going to go forward with it. And then the next step, if they go forward, they know that because it's a town committee, that things will be in that public domain.
yeah, I agree. I mean, we have to, I think, one of the things that we really need to stay on top of is setting expectations from the get-go about everything, confidentiality, public record, timelines, what we're capable of. So that those who come to us they can make the decision as to whether or not they want to move forward with the process as it's laid out, according to sort of the rules and regulations that we have to follow. Ultimately, if they don't want to move forward with it, then the decision is completely up to them, as long as we're very upfront about the process.
And it seems like, if we have a really strong list of other options, if somebody isn't comfortable going through with a more public process, but we have a mechanism to sort of drive them in a different direction, that's still tremendous value add. Gets the conversation going.
Does anybody else have any other thoughts or things that we need to sort of include in this before we finalize it and move forward to the select board?
I have to get off the meeting. I'm sorry. Wish everyone a happy holiday of your choice. And I'll be in touch with you, Cynthia, to talk about, picking the things up.
Thanks, Bud.
Yeah.
Jen,
So I just want to make sure that I'm getting it. So somebody comes and says, I want to talk to somebody on the Human Rights Committee about something that happened to me. My role as a Human Rights Committee person is to talk with them to find out what's going on, tell them if they want to move forward in our process, assuming that it's something that falls into one of our buckets. I explained to them that everything going forward from here is a matter of public record, and ask them if that's something that they want to do. And then we have a meeting after that of the whole committee for me to report back what the complainant told me and what they're looking for. And then we discuss what, if anything, the committee's going to do. Is that what this looks like?
I don't think we have a meeting unless we don't move forward unless the complainant wants us to move forward. So it
But
could, end at-
assuming the
it could
complainant does
actually-
want
it
us
could
to.
completely- it could just end it, I think, at initial intake.
But so say they do want to go forward. And so that's what I guess I'm wondering, is that next step is a public meeting like this? For us to say, this person, like without using their name, came forward with this particular complaint against a company, for example, in the town. Is this the forum that we have that conversation in?
Yeah, but I feel like that's kind of what we've been doing, right? Somebody will email us or
Mhm.
shoot a message to Facebook. And then one of us brings it up.
Mhm.
And then we decide whether or not it's actually within our, does it really fall into the category of human rights? And then I think we kick off the process if we decide that, and the complainant can always decide to conclude the process if they don't feel comfortable. But that's my understanding. We need to decide, we need to decide as a group whether or not it's actually something that we want to move forward with, because it may not be a thing of, it may not be a human rights issue.
Mhm.
Amelia?
We had a flow chart. Are we still using that?
Yeah. It just kind of that combined with this document, but that's how the chart worked.
Is that outlined?
Would it be helpful if I shared it on the screen with folks?
We
That
had
flow
that-
chart?
We had that at the session, the training session, I think.
Okay.
Let me see.
I'm just gonna add, I think these are all such important details and I don't want to move past any of them flippantly. But I also think part of what we need is the learnings of starting. I think there's so much we're gonna learn about the nuances once we have a couple cases. And so I do think, in my opinion, you've done a great job of outlining as much as we can right now and getting us started on the right foot. And then some of these aspects we may work out as we go from a finer detail standpoint. I think they're all really important questions. I'm not saying that they're not. They're really important points. I'm sorry, you can maybe hear my kids in the background. But I don't want to let the details slow us down too much either, would be or slow us down any further.
Amelia?
I think that's an excellent point, Lisa, and I think we have to present it as a work in progress, and that we're learning by doing. But we have a framework that we've thought through very carefully, and we think that this is a good starting point.
Nate?
Just two really quick thoughts. It may be worth us collectively coming up with some sort of consensus about how we're going to refer to a complainant, like in the public meetings, if the person isn't comfortable sharing their name, and sort of similar situations, like if there are particularly sensitive details about what occurred. I wonder if it's worth having some ground rules about what gets discussed and what doesn't, just because this is going to be on YouTube for everybody to see. And then similarly, on the intake form, which is obviously very important, but will be a public record. I wonder if that I don't have a solution here, but I'm just sort of thinking out loud. If we could have some framework in place such that, you know, particular questions don't get a written response or something, if the complainant isn't interested in having that be part of the public record, that might help some folks feel more comfortable engaging with the process.
What do you guys think about that? And what would that look like?
So I think, you know, I think somebody mentioned earlier names. So, you know, we could refer to the person in the public meeting as the complainant rather than giving a particular name, or gender. You know, perhaps somebody isn't comfortable with their gender being shared. You know, particularly if it's a member of the LGBTQ community who might not be out to certain communities. I don't know. The idea popped into my head just a few minutes ago, so unfortunately not fully fleshed out, but I'd be happy to put something together if that'd be helpful.
Yeah, so Katie, would there be a way to sort of try to use language to cloak?
I think it's
Like would town
there's
council-
no prohibition for just not writing something down or using an alternative, you know, if you call somebody anonymous one. I mean, I think that's a programmatic policy choice that this group can make if you want to do that. And I think some of the other human rights committees that the subcommittee had looked at, some people have a policy that you can't be anonymous and file a complaint. But I think that's a policy choice this group can make, whether you want to take a complaint anonymously or not. I guess it differs if somebody's filing an anonymous complaint and not willing to engage in the process versus coming in and really talking to the intake member and saying, could you please not note my name anywhere? I think that's all. I think it's a good suggestion.
Cynthia.
I guess I'm wondering how much the select board needs to have in the way of how the details of, well, details are important, of how the process is going to work in order for them to give approval. And I agree with people who are saying that we will learn more as we're starting, but how much do they need to know in order to give us the permission to start? For instance, we did not, and I found this intake to response timeline that was part of the training. We haven't really, we talked earlier about investigations and how they can and can't be done. And thinking back quickly to a lot of the kind of complaints we had over the years, sometimes there were, a lot of them were by letters, and part of how we decided as to whether it's something we could take on was by talking to the place they were complaining about. Somebody complained about the housing authority not respecting their rights, and we found out that the person that there were certain regulations that they had not followed, and that's why they were being asked to leave. But without that information, we wouldn't know if they were being, quote, mistreated. So how much do we need to have in this? I think the scope and all what was written and given to us is marvelous, but how much do we need to have about the specifics of the process at this point?
Katie.
I think there's plenty here to present to the select board. You know, I can't speak for them. I don't know if they are going to want to have, you know, have follow-up questions for this committee to go back and flesh out some things in more detail and then come back again. I'm not sure, but I think there's plenty here that's really been detailed out to go to the select board and get their thoughts.
Any other, I'm gonna incorporate all of this into the document and share it with Marlene. Marlene and I will obviously touch base before we meet with them, which is gonna probably be next month. But what are some other things that we need to keep in mind? We're just gonna roll with it and see what happens.
Tina, are you guys going to be presenting this in person? Do you want some moral support in the audience?
Are they meeting in person right now, Katie?
They run hybrid meetings. So if folks want to participate over Zoom, but I
We'll
would
probably-
recommend
well,
if you're comfortable in person, it's
Yeah, we'll probably be in person then.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you, because we had mentioned, so for those of you that were not able to attend the training, I do have extra folders with the materials that were presented to us. But also, Katie, you and I need to touch base about the legal training. And sort
Yeah.
of putting that together and figuring out what that's gonna look like. And I guess, are there things that you guys want out of that when we're talking to town council, Chief Schlittler, you know, about more of the legal stuff?
Just to let folks know, I reached out to the Mass Commission Against Disability, MCAD. They run some trainings around state anti-discrimination laws, really just the 101 of housing, employment, public accommodations. So I thought that might be a good kind of baseline if folks would be interested in that. But I would love to hear what, Cynthia, I know you've mentioned a few things in the past, but from everyone, what would you want in a second training? You know, public records and open meeting law is always on the list. And my thoughts for Lieutenant Carroll and Chief Schlittler were, you know, what if you think there's a criminal element to the complaint, or what to look for if something elevates to a hate crime? But kind of, I'm just going off of previous discussions we've all had. So I'd love to hear what you want in a training.
Nate?
Do we have any affirmative reporting duties if we learn that there's conduct like happening at the school or something like that, where we would be obligated to pass the information along? I think we're nominally, we're a government entity here.
Katie or Belinda, do either of you have an answer for that?
I'm not confident in the answer, so I'm going to add that to our legal question list.
Was Belinda about to say something?
Yeah, hi. I would agree with Katie. I would not want to chime in on that, because when you start dealing with the schools and you start dealing with kids, and you know, I'd want to be very cautious with stuff like that. So that's definitely something to add to the legal questions. And then also we would consult with the chief on that too.
Amelia?
I'm wondering if when we get stuck on some of these issues, if the select board might also be involved in helping us make a decision. For example, the issue with businesses. You know, if a situation and the sensitivity that the select board has to demonstrate toward all parties involved. I wonder if at some point we would then consult with someone on the select board
Mhm.
to give us feedback as we go through this process and put it together and fine tune it. Maybe someone be appointed to be for a term to be our consultant or the go-to person on the select board.
I feel like that makes sense, right?
So just so I understand what you mean, Amelia, do you mean somebody that on the select board would like participate in our deliberations about what to do about the situation?
I think we might have a conversation and talk about how we might, based on what our goals are, how this is not attacking business, clarifying some and easing some of the anxieties that maybe some members of the board might have, or one member did have in the past, about alienating the business community. If we could have that conversation before we took the next step, just to assure, or maybe clarify what our goals are and make sure that we have the support that we need.
Yeah, I guess that kind of makes me wonder, what happens if the NHRC decides, I'm trying to look back at some of the possible things that we could do. What if we decide the complaint has merit and we want to get the parties together, for example, and it's the other party is one of the businesses. If there was a select board person that didn't want us to be pursuing that, what happens?
I think we talked about our strategies for bringing people together, and it's not showing blame but rather to engage people in a conversation, to clarify, and maybe the process, the way we go about that, it might be helpful for us to get some advice on how can we do that without making the situation even worse. And I think there's some activities we can take. I don't want to get into this now, but I think we need to connect with the business community ourselves. For example, the chamber, Charles River Regional Chamber, they're doing a lot of good stuff. But anyway, I don't know. It just so that we can move forward. I think it's important that everybody be on the same page.
Nate,
One other thought, and sorry, these are sort of coming out randomly. It may be worth coming up with some formal mechanism for communicating with folks, complainants, and then people who are being complained against. And the only reason I bring that up is, let's say that we're individually just using our private emails to email folks and facilitate.
Oh,
I could see a universe in which all of those emails would be public records, and may also be discoverable if a discrimination complaint that we get turns into litigation in a courtroom. And I'm guessing none of us want to go through our emails and pull out all of the documents that might arguably be public records. So if there's like a central Gmail account that's like the complainant hotline or something like that, it might be good to just sort of push all of the formal communications through that.
yeah, we have an HRC Gmail now, so we could use that.
That could be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Don't
great.
need to overcomplicate it.
Does anybody else have any other feedback specifically for Katie on additional training or questions? If something comes up, oh, Cynthia.
yeah, this is, would it be possible to get some kind of approval of the process from the select board before we go into the training with the lawyer and police representation? Or would they require that just as they required the other training we had in order for them to consider the proposal?
Katie, what do you think?
I think we could schedule it after, certainly, and that makes sense, just so we'll have a final approved process in place to shape the training around. That makes sense. And I think Tina, you had mentioned at one point, but I just want to make sure it doesn't go unsaid that the select board approving the process and the actual launch of the process does not have to be simultaneous. So, you know, the select board will approve a policy or a program or what have you, and then there'll have to be some amount of work from this group to figure out when you're ready to really like hit go and make it public. So that doesn't all need to happen the same night.
Yeah, we'll have to do some marketing around it. Figure out how we want to present ourselves. Okay, so when would we potentially be meeting with them?
I need to confirm, but January 24th, I think was what we were tentatively looking at, if that works for you and Marlene.
Okay, so that's sort of, you know, by the mid-January. If you have other ideas, thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, would be by then. It would be ideal to get all that from you guys so that Marlene and I can just do a final wrap up and prepare. And we'll see what happens. I'll incorporate what we talked about into this, and I'll also clean up the flow chart just to resend to everybody, just so that you have all of that information. So whatever we bring to them, you guys will have ahead of time as well.
Thank you for all the work that is going to go into that. Appreciate it a
Yeah.
lot.
Let's see where this is. It's only been 2 years.
And I just want to echo what Jen said earlier, of keeping us posted so we can be there in whatever way, virtually or in person, to support you and all these efforts.
Thanks. That was my last. I meant to add onto the agenda I went to last Friday, the Massachusetts HRC meeting. I was not able to stay for the whole thing because it was running a little bit long. So primarily what we talked about last Friday, it wasn't really any sort of issue or policy. It was more administrative things on their end, figuring out shared documents, how to disseminate best practices. They're redesigning the website. So that was the December meeting for Mass HRC. I don't know if anybody signed up for January. And Nate, did you end up going in October? Was it October?
I did, yeah. I
I'm
believe
sorry,
Cynthia-
I have to bounce and just wanted to say thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Lise.
I attended for about an hour, and Cynthia, please feel free to add anything. I unfortunately don't have my notes in front of me, but I remember I don't think there was anything in particular that we got through in the first hour. I think people were introducing themselves as we were talking about what their respective agencies were doing. But
Okay, so I think in January, Adam, who runs the Mass HRC, they may have a speaker, but I'll confirm that. He is also looking for additional speakers, just kind of moving forward. I thought maybe it would be, I may reach out to Josh. What's his last name? Frank. To see if he wanted to do something on credit. I think he would be great to bring in for one of these meetings. To talk about critical race theory, but if anybody has any other ideas or suggestions that they want to pass along, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just people that they feel would be interesting, informative, are hitting the topics, HRC topics that are relevant to all of us, you just let me know and we can pass those along. Or if you're on the email list, you can also certainly email Adam directly. I do feel like they are informative meetings, and it's nice to see or hear what other people are doing. And to see what's happening in other towns. For example, Melrose, it came up a little bit. They're dealing with quite a bit of anti-Semitism right now. The rep didn't get into details, but it kind of fed into sort of, okay, best practices and how do you handle it? There were some articles in the Globe recently about what's going on, and how do we sort of harness all of this information so that it's helpful for everybody, so that nobody's reinventing the wheel, because we're all going through the same things, maybe not simultaneously, but it's all the same, trying to figure out a way for all of the towns to share resources and information so that we can all be effective and efficient. So yeah, I mean, even if you haven't signed up for a meeting, if you can jump on, they announced the agendas a few days prior. I find it to be really sort of helpful and informative. Okay, so does anybody else have anything?
I think next month, maybe we can hear more about plans for the future in terms of Trans Day visibility, end of March, and Gay Pride Parade in
Yeah.
June, but we can.
Emmy and
there
Finn
isn't
were,
enough.
they want to start working on Pride plans. We should start. Yeah, we can start talking about that stuff. Another thing that came up in Cynthia and Renaz, you guys were at the last meeting, the Resilience Network. It might be kind of interesting and cool for us to, what did Nicole and Beth call it?
Calling in and calling out.
So it's sort of just setting ground rules for our group as far as how we communicate with one another and how we listen. I can get more details from those guys. My brain is gone. But just sort of for our group, setting ground rules so that we feel like this is we're communicating effectively with one another and also respectfully. And I'm not saying that we don't already do that, but we've never really set those ground rules for ourselves. And I think that we also talked about that at the training, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just sort of setting ground rules so that we all understand, we're all on the same page about respectful communication and listening. So that might be something that we could also incorporate in the new year.
But I feel like we already do all that. We're really such a great group.
Yeah.
You're great.
Maybe the community agreements that they
Community
can.
agreements. That's it.
Yeah.
So, it's just something to think about. I agree with you, but I don't know. There might be some things we have overlooked or things that people don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about because we don't have this community agreement, and we are also a very public body. So
Good idea.
that might be something that we can take on.
In the future.
Also, this is not on the agenda. I want to talk about maybe also in the future, if we do anything with the school regarding anti-Semitism, do we have any program? Have we ever done any work before regarding this topic or not?
Not since I've been around, but some of you have been here around longer than me. So has there been any programming or anything, events?
No, nobody knows. Maybe we.
We
don't
go
do
back
it.
a long time ago when people were part of, is it ADL? And then they did a lot of things that involved the whole community. And then because of disagreement with their position about the Armenian genocide, and it was a long drawn out process with lots of open discussions, and the town decided to stop being part of that. And the school system used to have their that group do a leadership training for students. It was really a big part of what happened in the town. That was Marlene would probably remember it, but it was before Amelia and I were part of it. But it's a good thing to bring up about what do we, what should we be doing?
Amelia,
I think we need to reach out to Dan or someone in the administration and get someone on the committee from the school. We did have someone years ago when Cynthia and I first came on to, it was a teacher. And I'm not talking about the students, but a teacher who came was a member of the committee. And I really think we need to touch base with someone. Dan used to come to our meetings and he's just so busy. I don't think he can continue doing that, but it was very helpful to have him interact with us and discuss some of the issues that we were concerned about in terms of what was going on in the schools. I think we need someone on this committee, and I don't know, maybe it's a lost cause. Everyone is so busy, but if we could get some representative from the school.
so he said he would be willing to definitely pop in, not attend regularly, but if there was something specific that either we wanted him to present on or discuss, then he would be happy to join us. So if we feel like this is a topic that we want to explore further, I'm happy to reach out to him and see if that's something that we can schedule for early in the new year.
I don't know, what do others think? By the way, I don't remember if we've had a meeting since the Diversity Summit, but Jen and Carrie and Tina did a fantastic job in their presentation at the Diversity Summit, and Dan's contribution was also an important part of that. Thank you. But that was a good example of ways that we could collaborate and reach out to the school community. Although I don't know if the school community knew that that presentation was
happening.
took place. But anyway, that
I wonder if we
It's in our minutes from the last meeting. The feedback about the Diversity Summit and the session that they ran on the critical race theory and Dan Gertens being there and the need for having more people in the town know about what's happening.
I wonder if we could invite specifically the person who is the community engagement person for the Real Coalition. Diane Simmons, I think is her name. Like, I wonder, I mean, yeah, Dan definitely has way too much going on, but I believe that her role is supposed to be kind of as a liaison with the community, as particularly on the Real Coalition efforts. And it might be, I don't know what other role she plays within the district, but that might be somebody that we could try to personally make a connection with in some way to get her to come.
She is fantastic. She worked with NDI when she first took that position, and actually got us connected to important people in the community, people of color. I wonder if she would be able to take that role, but I think that's an excellent idea.
Okay, I can reach out, see what happens there. Do we want to, Katie?
Just to, for Diane, I wonder if an update on the Real Coalition's work, or if there's something else that the group wants to hear about from the schools. If we could ask Diane specifically to come talk about those things. Just to Tina's point, I think sometimes it's a little bit unclear if somebody's just joining to to join. Or if we're asking them to kind of update the group on something.
I mean, Dan used to give reports every month. It was like he had a part on the agenda every single month that was like, talk about what's going on in schools. And I thought it was really helpful to hear that.
Maybe he could come for just part of the meeting and do that kind of report and our responding, and then head on, that might be a more doable kind of expectation. And to ask for him, because it's different having Diane than having Dan come and say, it's been a long time since when it's been possible for you to come, can you, and if we had a few questions in advance too.
Well,
We're
let's-
not meeting in Zoom, right, next month? Or we are?
yeah, next month we're on Zoom.
We are?
Mhm.
So we can ask him just to come for the first part and then he can leave.
Yeah, but I can't, we have to be specific about why we want him to attend.
So do you think that it wouldn't be enough to say to him, prior to the pandemic, both NHRC and the schools were pretty deliberate about trying to kind of be in each other's orbit regularly, not necessarily for like an occasion or a program, but just to kind of keep those relationships alive. And that now, we're a couple years out, understanding that he's really busy. Is there somebody that he would consider sending regularly, or suggesting somebody from the Real Coalition that might be interested? I mean, I think that I think that they, generally speaking, do want to know what we're doing, because I think that they're always a little bit like, "Whoa, what are they doing?"
Yeah.
Like stirring something up. So I think it's a nice way to have a relationship without having there be like a thing that we need to come address at the time.
Yeah, we can talk to him about it. I mean, when I met with him this summer, he said that he personally, just the update, it was just too much for his schedule, but he personally, if, there was something in particular we wanted to talk about or had questions about, or we came to him and said, okay, I don't know what's happening with multicultural curriculum, the curriculum in middle school, the specific topic, he would be happy to go ahead and set some time aside for that. Which brings me back to, do we want to either talk to him or Diane, or in a more appropriate, a contact person about Renaz's original anti-Semitism question? Given that, it's always relevant, but particularly now in this climate, things are happening. Cynthia.
I remember from the times when he was coming more frequently, that one of the places that we got to that I thought was important to him and that we might be able to be helpful, and it has an overlap with the Real Coalition, is communication with people in the community as well as in the schools. And we were supporting them in that meeting they had one spring a whole bunch of years ago, where they were supposed to be giving feedback, listening to the community about what the community thought were the issues. And they started off with a panel because they wanted people to know what they were doing before opening it up to questions. And the panel went so long, and it was a wonderful panel, that there wasn't adequate time for the questions, and they were supposed to broken up into groups, and some people were furious and attacking, and other people were trying to move forward, given the way it was. But that, I think, then we would come back to that when he would say, oh, you know, I respond to people and that's that sort of thing. But he really was acknowledging that that was an area that needed more help. And I think with our participation on the Real Coalition, from what Jen had said, that was sort of the community input. Communication was one of the things that they wanted help from the Human Rights Committee about. And we started to brainstorm some things about how that could be more effective. So we as individuals can say, oh, I hear this or I hear that. Like I was at a meeting where one student was saying, I'm in a history class and they're using this really old text and they have not updated about what's actually happened with slavery, and people were aghast. And then she said, oh, but in some of the other history classes there are. And it seems to be just a question of what the particular teacher's background or bent or whatever. So, I mean, that's just, I heard that at one meeting, and I'm sure everybody has heard various things, but we are a community group that may be more attuned to those kind of issues than others. But I think that was something that was really important to him and important to us. So if you look for the thing that would make him want to come to a meeting, I think that's at least one of the areas. And Jen, you're in the Real Coalition, so you know if that's still something that we're being asked to have input.
I don't know that there's been a meeting yet this year. The dates that I saw were all during the workday, but I don't think any of them have happened yet. Tina, do you know?
Oh, Tina,
No,
you're
nothing
in
has
too,
mattered.
right?
No, nothing has happened. Last one was June.
Yeah.
Okay, so does anybody know Diane directly, personally?
Yeah, I can reach out, Tina.
Let's just see what, let's just start the conversation. How can we connect? How can we become more involved with each other's lives? And in the meantime, do we want to move forward with the anti-Semitism conversation?
Are we talking about trying to plan an event or just gathering
Because
information?
Renaz's question was about anti-Semitism and how that's being dealt with in school, or am I paraphrasing you correctly? So
It's like I got asked the question, like, what do we do as a human rights committee regarding complaints of anti-Semitism in school? Do we have any program? Do we talk with the school? Do we do anything about it? And I just wanted to know if we do or if we did before.
I'm not aware. I can't recall a complaint specifically about that happening in the school that was brought to us, at least.
And also, do we want to wait until a complaint comes, or, or should we start doing something, just, yeah.
I think it's mainly that there's been like graffiti or
Yeah.
things written, and so that becomes the school community, and then the town gets involved. That's the main way I think we've had involvement. I've heard a lot from people who are older, who had been in the town for many years, and when they first moved here, the realtors would only show them houses in certain areas, saying that they weren't, this is where you would be more comfortable, whatever, that there was a lot of more overt anti-Semitism years ago in the town.
crazy to me. Okay, well, let's reach out to Diane and see where how we can start this, get this going, because it's something we've been talking about for a while. And I do think Dan wants to be involved. I mean, he reached out to us about the discrimination complaint process, for example. So, he wants to know what was going on and how could they get involved? So I mean, I think that he wants to make that connection and to foster that relationship. It's just a matter of figuring out how would we all be most effective in that? What is that going to look like without it just being sort of, a mouthpiece? Does anybody have anything else?
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Could I please have a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
I need a second.
Second,
Renaz.
third.
Just say yes when I call your name.
Yes.
Renaz. Amelia,
Yes, Renaz, get well.
Carrie,
Yes.
Nate,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Cynthia.
Yes,
Okay. Thank you guys. Have a good holiday. We'll see you next year.
hey,
Bye.
thank you.